Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope this morning, I know I sure am. And whether you're just getting started or whether you've been up for a while, there's always any time is a great opportunity to learn about some positive tricks and tips to make your overall well-being better, right? So if you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, a girlfriend. I am a wellness advocate, an exercise advocate, basically a movement advocate. And I am also, I don't do really much with it right now, but one thing I don't talk about much is that I'm actually a certified personal trainer. And that's going to become salient here in a minute because after I got my Wellness Wednesday discussion kind of prepped, I took a continuing education class because I'm trying to wrap up my continuing education for this year's renewal and learned a whole bunch of new stuff. So basically my normal notes look like they've got scribble marks all over them because I was like, oh my gosh, I should have done this beforehand. So essentially I could have turned this into 2 whole Wellness Wednesdays, and that's entirely possible going forward. But for right now, we'll get there. But if you're just stumbling on my page, I started Wellness Wednesday because wellness is a broad topic. It covers a lot of things. A lot of times we end up talking about mindset, but the bottom line is that there's a reason that peer wisdom and support groups work. And it's because when we share information about what we've tried and what's worked for us, not necessarily in a you should do this type fashion, but more of a this is what worked for me and this is why and these are the differences I noticed. It really helps. We help each other. We help each other to learn new tips and tricks and things that can improve our wellness. And then it's kind of like spaghetti noodles. We learn the new things and then we bounce them off the wall and we see what sticks, right? For us, because everybody's different. So the same things that work for me might not work for you, vice versa. But when we share information like this, it's fabulous. So during the course of this live, if you have a question, if you have an idea, if you have something you want to share, please comment. Now, with that said, if I don't acknowledge your question or your comment, it's not because I'm ignoring you. Facebook loves to hide things and doesn't always show me all the comments. A lot of times Facebook shows me when you're come on and when you're watching, doesn't show me anything else you do. Sometimes it shows me good morning, but then you could comment a whole book underneath that and I'll never see it until I'm done. So if I don't respond or I don't acknowledge you when you comment or ask a question, just know that I will after the fact, and it's not just because I'm ignoring you, and that I so appreciate your interaction. So with that said, if you have followed me for a while, you know that last week we talked about standing up for ourselves and about how assertiveness does not have to equal aggressiveness, right? So this week we're going to take that in a little bit different direction because I kind of also had it on my mind to talk about the dangers of sitting. So today we're going to talk about standing up for our health instead of standing up for ourselves, which actually could end up being the same down the road when you dig into advocacy. But for today, it really has to do with the fact that sit happens. It does. And we're going to talk about why we can't let it happen too much and what the benefits are of getting ourselves moving. So let's get started. If you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments. And of course, as always, if you find this helpful, please share. Don't hesitate to drop a comment, send me a message if you have a question. And most importantly, let's keep it positive because we already have enough negativity going on. And we really don't need to add to it when we're only halfway through the week. So let's go. All right. So, my story with standing, and I'm standing right now and I'm at my standing desk, that I have in my home office. My story about standing starts kind of around the downturn of the construction industry back in, like 2009, 2010, in that whole range of years. So I worked in an administrative job for a local home builders association. Some of you know that. And it took a while for the negative effects of the construction downturn to kind of circle back around to the administrative side, if you will, to the advocacy side. So long story short, basically what happened was I was starting to run on a fairly regular basis, but at the same time, I was struggling with my hips. I was struggling with speed. The faster I got, the more my hips were bothering me. But also at the same time, during the downturn, I was cut to part-time, and I was about 38, and that's actually when I went to college for the first time. But during the downturn, I got cut to part-time. I was the only staff member, and I was trying to basically do 40 hours worth of work in a 24-hour time frame. So what that meant was taking an organization that had previously kind of been stuck in some older, not as technologically advanced ways, and kind of converting them in the interest of streamlining time so that I could do more in a shorter amount of time. Isn't that like the name of the game now? We're trying to do more in a shorter amount of time. And it's not always the greatest thing. If you guys see me looking distracted, I have hummingbirds outside my window doing sky dances right now. So here we are in the downturn, and I'm trying to do 40 hours worth of work in 20 hours a week. And the phone's not ringing because everybody's suffering. And so basically I'm spending 20 hours a week at my desk. And sometimes, y'all, I think sometimes I wasn't even blinking. Like the phone wasn't ringing, and very rarely was anybody walking in the door. So I would sometimes sit at my desk for 3 or 4 hours stretch, or what felt like a 3 or 4 hour stretch, without moving, and sometimes, like I said, without even blinking. I mean, things were so bad right then here in Florida that I would occasionally pick up the phone and make sure it was still working, like that I had a dial tone. It was rough there for a while. So here I am, I'm trying to streamline 40 hours worth of work into 20 hours a week. And so basically most of that time, that 20 hours was spent sitting in front of the computer, and I would move so little that I would literally feel my body kind of curling into the computer, like becoming one with the computer, and my shoulders were curving forward. Well, during this time I was in college, and I also picked up a part-time job right around this time, maybe right before I got into college. I picked up a part-time job with the local soccer club, with the soccer organization. So in the evenings I had part-time work to do, and I would go to my boyfriend's house because he would be cooking dinner. And my boyfriend at the time. And after sitting all day, I would just kind of stand at his countertop, his like eat-in kitchen countertop, you know what I mean? Because it was about the right height for me. I'm not an Amazon, y'all. I'm pretty short. So I would just kind of stand there, and I would type, do the things I had to do, check the emails, do the social media posts, whatever, do the things I had to do, but I would do it standing. And when dinner would be ready, he would put the plate in front of me, and he'd be like, "Are you going to sit down?" And I really just didn't want to sit down because I'd been sitting all day and my body ached. So I really didn't want to sit down. So I would be like, "Nah, I'm just going to finish this up and eat here." So that's kind of some context for you. And basically what happened was, as I continued to run and I continued to pick up speed, I continued to have struggles with my hips, that were just getting more and more sore. And what was happening was, after talking to some friends who had kind of been through this, in the running circle, what I was learning was that it was probably weak glute muscles from sitting all the time. So between the fact that I was starting to feel in my back, this curling into the computer, and that I was struggling with my hips, I just wanted to stand. I didn't want to sit anymore. And at the time, so this was around 2008, 2010, probably closer to 2010. At the time, there were starting to be some articles about treadmill desks. And it kind of put a little light bulb on for me. And I was like, well, what if I could stand? I came from retail, grocery, and waiting tables, y'all. That was my background prior to going to work for this organization. So I was in the hospitality, customer service, retail. So I was on my feet all the time. Good morning, Miss Ann. So I was like, well, why couldn't I stand? That was kind of my thought process. I was like, I don't know if I could do a treadmill though. So I kind of started bouncing ideas off my boyfriend, and then decided one day he's like, well, if you really want to stand up, because I had looked into the cost of standing desks, like, components that you could put on top of your desk that were adjustable. And they seemed expensive to me at the time. And my organization, you guys, I was part-time during the downturn. My organization didn't have a whole lot of money, so I didn't dare ask for what would it be the equivalent of a $400 to $600 modification to my office. So My boyfriend at the time built an add-on to my desk, and we painted it the same color as my desk. So we didn't ask permission. We just did it. It was completely out of our pockets. It was with leftover wood he had laying around, a little bit of paint matched up to the desk color. And he built an add-on to my desk that allowed me to move everything up so that the countertop was about the same height as the countertop at his house when I would go there and do my work, so that I could stand. And so again, this was before it got really trendy, when people were just starting to talk about it, and only a select handful of people had treadmill desks. And I was like, I don't know if I can walk and work at the same time, but I could definitely stand and work at the same time. So we didn't make anything permanent. We didn't attach anything because I was worried that, because it had been so long since I had stood regularly, and this is going to be a little longer today because I have this whole contextual story for you. I was worried that I was going to get tired and that I was going to need to sit periodically. So we modified one part of my desk, and we left a sitting area. And you guys, the first day I stood all day, I never felt the need to sit down. I never went backwards. The only time I went backwards was when I had a stress fracture and had to be in a boot. And I still even stood most of the time that I was recovering from that, because it wasn't long after we had done these modifications. Nobody at my office ever questioned it. In fact, my board of directors, when they came in and realized what was going on, they were like, this is really cool. How's it working for you? And I was like, I feel so much more productive. It's kind of like being a shortstop in a softball game, and your coach tells you that you got to be bent down and be ready to go. And because you're going to get to the ball faster if you're coming from this stance than this stance, kind of the same idea. So I was more productive. I felt better. My legs weren't hurting as much after I'd had a long run. My hips stopped bothering me, and things started to change for me. And I literally never looked backwards. The entire time that I continued to work in that office with a standing desk setup, which evolved over the years, eventually we did get me a standing desk component for my desk instead of, one that could be adjusted, and wall-mounted monitors so that I could stand all the time. But essentially what happened was I was more productive. I felt better in general, and I basically could move faster. I could react to things faster because I didn't have to get up out of a chair, and so much of my soreness went away. So that's kind of, and I'm still standing today. I bought an adjustable standing desk that's automatic. It's really fancy. So I have two settings, which have never been set. I have a stand setting and a sit setting. I have never adjusted this to sitting. I absolutely love it. I cannot imagine sitting at a desk all day. Oh my gosh. And now I'm at the point where once I finish my grad school, my degree, and I go back to like supervised hours and things like that, I will probably be inclined to go ahead and pay out of my pocket if I need to purchase a standing desk modification for my office, so that I have that option of standing. It's that important because it's made such a huge difference in how I feel. So basically, I've been doing this since around 2009, 2010, way before it became trendy. Now it's really trendy. Now whole offices are remodeling and incorporating standing desks in their offices, which I think is amazing because at least then people have that option. Good morning, Miss Ann. So what happens when I don't move? What happens when I sit too much? What happens when I don't exercise? I feel sluggish. I feel achy. I feel unmotivated. And my depression and anxiety both start to increase. What has changing to a standing desk done for me? Well, first of all, I am probably on my feet standing for probably 99% of the day that I'm up. I don't actually sit down for anything except maybe dinner until about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then bedtime's usually around 10. That's how much I stand. I am on my feet from the time I get up. Pretty much, I almost never sit down unless I have to for a meeting, or to drive somewhere or whatever. So what has it done for me? Tons less back trouble, way better leg recovery for my run days, for heavy duty exercise days like yesterday at Jazzercise. Holy Hannah. Adrian over at Jazzercise kicked my butt. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. So less back trouble, better leg recovery, more productive, just less sitting in general because it hurts when I do. And you don't realize a lot of times how this stuff affects you until you start doing it and then kind of fall off the wagon. I've talked about this before, kind of fall off the wagon and then go back to it. And then the light bulb goes on and you're like, oh, so that's my story. And that's why we're talking about this today. So why does this matter? I'm going to try to speed things up because I know I've already been long and I don't want to keep you too long, but this is important stuff, y'all. So why does it matter? How many of you spend most of your days going from bed to the breakfast table, to your driver's seat, to a desk job, back to your car, and then to the sofa? Is that what your day looks like? Because if that's what your day looks like, that can have a tremendous negative impact on a lot of things. And we don't think about it when we're doing it, right? We're just like, oh my, but now that I've said it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, all I do is sit all day. I sit at lunch. I sit at breakfast. I sit on my way to work. I sit at work. I sit on my way back from work. And then I sit at the dinner table and then I sit on the couch. Holy cow. What am I going to do? That's a lot of sitting. Our lifestyles are becoming increasingly sedentary, and they have for a while. As we as we advance the technology on modern day inconveniences, we sit in a drive-through to get food. We sit on our phones. We can do so much more by computer than we can accomplish in person or by phone, that we're constantly just on our butts, literally. And it's modern conveniences versus the good old days. Back in the good old days, really not that long ago, I think something I read when I was researching this said like 100 years ago, not even 100 years ago, like I'm 51. So let's say 30 years ago, 35 years ago. If you wanted to talk to your neighbor, you had to truck it next door, y'all. You had to move. Back in my day, if you wanted to change the channel, you had to get up, and sometimes you had to get on the roof to adjust the antenna. This is not old wives' tales. This is the truth. So our lifestyles are becoming increasingly sedentary because with the technological advancements has come more efficiency for our brains, for time, but less movement, and our bodies were designed to move. Movement is medicine. There's research over and over and over again that shows that movement helps with joint lubrication. It helps with muscle maintenance or strengthening your muscles. It helps with, you guys know this, it helps with bone density. It helps with balance. I worked with a lady who is the person that introduced me to yoga. And I'll never forget, because the first time I went to yoga, I thought, this is cool. It's not going to be any big deal. It's going to be a bunch of stretching. Y'all, I was sore for 3 stinking days. But she was in her 50s at the time, which means she's probably, I was there for 21 years, so she's probably in her 70s now. She was in her 50s at the time, and she had a Native American background, and she had a big old Native American totem in her house. She was trying to move that totem one day, and the totem fell over. It kind of was one of those situations where she and the totem fell, and the totem fell on top of her, and it was very heavy. Because of the yoga background that she had, and because of how strong and flexible her body was, she actually did not get hurt. She felt like she was hurt initially, but once she got the totem off of her, she immediately went into some very basic yoga stretches as she felt like she could do them, and continued to do that throughout the day. And ultimately, she was sore for a couple of days. Outside of that, she had 0 damage from this totem falling on her, okay? So movement is huge. It helps us with balance. It helps us with bone density. It helps us with muscle maintenance or strengthening our muscles. And unfortunately, we lose muscle mass as we get older. So that's just a thing. And the best way to combat that is to move and do strength exercises. So, this becomes increasingly important, obviously, as we age, in order to help reduce our dependency on others and help keep us independent. That's really what we want, right? As we get older, we don't want to be a burden on somebody else. I mean, we make jokes about being a burden to our children and driving them nuts, but that's not really what we want. We want to stay somewhat independent. We want to be able to thrive. So the more we move, the more that's possible, as long as we do it in a smart and cautious and what's the word I'm looking? I can't make words right now, so we'll just go with that, in an intelligent and cautious way. So the other thing about movement is that it advances mental health. It improves our self-image. It increases blood flow to the brain, which, y'all, I just learned last night. I already had this in my notes, but I just learned last night is huge. It helps with growth and survival of neurons, increases social contact. And if you add nature, y'all look out, because once you're out there in nature, it changes, it adds and supplements and just kind of, it changes everything. There's research that shows that spending time in nature has huge impacts on your mental health. So I am a living example of that impact. You are looking at someone, and we've talked about this before. You are looking at someone who literally changed the trajectory of their thought processes, their mindset, everything by simply getting moving. That's where it started. It started with trying to run again. It started with helping a friend train for a 5K. That's where it started. And what an amazing difference it's made. I can tell you that there was a time that I left when I was taking regular weekly line dance classes. Just as an example of how much of a difference 1 hour of exercise or 2 hours of exercise, of light exercise, can make. I left work in a foul mood. I almost didn't go to dance class because I was literally so foul. I was getting on my own nerves. I was like, oh my gosh, Donna, you need to chill out. I went to dance class, and by the time I walked out of dance class, 2 hours later, I was a completely different individual. Same thing, foul mood, 30-minute walk, 30-minute run, completely different person. So I'm telling you that the impact on mental health and wellness is as much, if not more, as it is on your physical well-being, okay? All right, so let's talk some nerd facts. I'm going to try to keep this moving. And again, if you can't stay on the whole time because I'm running long, it will be here for 4 weeks for you to go back to. And as soon as I get everything uploaded to YouTube, you'll have a spot where you can watch it all the time. Okay, so nerd facts. Standing burns twice as many calories as sitting, according to Yale Medicine. Okay? If you think you're in pain now, trust me when I say to you, I can speak personally to the fact that sitting increases it. Even if you're active, sitting tightens hip flexors, it tightens hamstrings, it stiffens joints, and all of these things make simple things like walking once you do get up that much harder, and sometimes set you up for a fall when you're that stiff, and that's according to Harvard Health. Studies also show that too much sitting increases the risk. We know this. This is stuff we hear all the time. Too much sitting increases the risk of obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, deep vein thrombosis, metabolic syndrome, and even cancer. Our bodies were designed to move. Our bodies don't know what to do with all this sedentary activity, okay? UCLA researchers have found an association between too much sitting and thinning of the medial temporal lobe, which is where our memories are formed, which may be a precursor to cognitive decline. Now then, I turned around. I already had this typed out, y'all. I turned around, took a CEU class last night, and my mind was blown about how much research there is on movement versus cognitive ability, cognitive decline, and the whole 9 yards. So we're probably going to talk about that at a later date, but let's keep today moving. But essentially, when there's thinning of the medial temporal lobe, this might be a precursor to cognitive decline. Correlation, of course, does not equal causation, and there's a lot more research to be done. But there are some very, very strong links between physical movement, physical health, and mental health and cognitive decline. Just know that is very, very much there. And I already knew about the relationship to mental health without anybody having to tell me, but the cognitive stuff was mind-blowing. Okay, so, and then finally on the nerd facts, excessive sitting puts significant stress on your spinal structures. Especially when you have poor posture, and most of us have that phone computer posture. We kind of look like this. It kind of reminds me of E.T. So especially with poor posture, it contributes to back pain by weakening and deactivating the glute muscles as well. Been there, felt that. And again, that is according to Yale Medicine. And actually, when my dad came down to visit, he drove down here. He's about 20 years older than me. He drove down, he did a road trip down here. And when he got to my house, he was like, do you have a heating pad? My back is killing me. I want to put it on my back. And I looked at him and I said, sure, you can have my heating pad, but I want you to do me a favor. Because I already kind of knew about the glute muscle connection to back pain from sitting all the time. And Eric and I had gone through it when Not long after Eric and I got together, he was complaining about lower back pain, and he drives a lot for his job. So I said, okay, let me just humor me and let me massage your glutes. And I know, TMI, but it wasn't that way. It was literally trying to help him. And in about 30 minutes of massaging his glutes, his lower back pain almost was nearly gone. So when my dad said, do you have a heating pad? My back hurts. I want to put it on my back. I said, okay, you put it on your back, but then I want you to humor me and I want you to put it under your butt for about 10 minutes afterwards. And he looked at me like I had 10 heads and he was like, why would I put it under my butt? I said, just trust me, because your back pain is probably coming from sitting in the minivan for hours driving down here. Well, he didn't believe me, but he did what I asked him to. He humored me. He gave me the benefit of the doubt. Good morning, Miss Kelly. And he put that heating pad. That heating pad did more under his butt for 10 minutes than it did after like 20 or 30 minutes on his back. And now he believes me. Now, whether or not he still does that, because it's been a while, I don't know. I can't control that. So those are some nerd facts for you. So how do we change? Okay, I know I'm going fast. I know it's a lot of information. You can always come back and watch it again later if you need to. Or you can shoot me a message. Exactly. Yes, Miss Kelly. But he did look at me like I had 10 heads when I said, do me a favor and just when you're done with the heating pad on your back, stick it under your butt for a few minutes. And he thought I was nuts until he did it. So how do we change? How do we change? We just start moving. It's that simple. Okay, doesn't sound so simple. Get out and go for a walk. Get out in your garden, in your yard, do some yard work. Take an exercise or dance class. Y'all, what I learned last night about cognitive health and the importance of what do they call it? Multi-component exercises that use the brain and the body and cause you to think and get your cognitive function going. And I didn't realize that as I'm sitting there, I knew jazzercise was great for me, right? And I know y'all probably think I'm nuts, but jazzercise is one of those things like dancing, like Zumba, like anything else. If you're doing things that cause you to have to remember steps and think about where your body's going, that's all cognitive work that's coming into play with your physical exercise. I love to run. Running is great, but it's not doing much for me up here, because I'm mostly just checking out while I run, right? Listening to music, thinking, making up stories in my head. Jazzercise is what I'm doing that's going to keep me cognitively strong, besides the fact that I'm in grad school, because it's more about just keeping your brain challenged by learning. It's about keeping your brain challenged by learning, especially new things, while you're keeping your body moving. And just what I learned last night was so amazing. And I'm a grad school student, and I think I learned more about exercising cognition last night than I have the entire time I've been in grad school. So with that said, I'm going to do my little jazzercise plug here, because while I was doing this continuing ed, the head of our Jazzercise Center, Trina Murphy, sent me an invite to open house this weekend. So Jazzercise is doing a free open house this weekend on Saturday in Crystal River. So if you're local, get over to Jazzercise, take a free class. Let me know. I'll probably be going to the 8 o'clock class. I don't know that I'll stay for the whole open house, but it's an opportunity to get in there and try it for free. But Jazzercise is on the list of things that is not just great for you physically, but it's great for you cognitively. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all the right things. This is fabulous. So talk to me. I'll drop a link for that open house in the comments, so that you can check that out. If you're not local, find out what your local Jazzercise Center is doing. Check out Zumba, check out anything, line dance classes. To get moving, just take something that's new to you. Tai Chi, yoga. These are all multi-component exercises that cause you to think, have to remember, to learn new things, and to move your body at the same time. And that, y'all, is how we feed all of it. That is how we feed all of it. Okay, so did you know that the recommended daily movement for an individual is 30 minutes 5 times a day or 5 times a week of moderate intensity? Okay, that's brisk walking, or 70, if that's brisk walking, basically. You don't have to be a runner. You don't have to train for a marathon. You don't have to join a dance class to get your body moving. So, however, if you don't want to do the moderate intensity of brisk walking for 5 days a week, then your other option is 75 minutes a week of vigorous intensity, which is hiking, jogging, running, and 2 days of strength/balance activities. Either way, whether you're doing the moderate activity 5 days a week, there's also recommended 2 days of strength/balance activities. Now, you know why that is. I probably don't have to tell you because, and if you're like, no, Donna, I don't know why. When I say it, you're going to remember because you've heard it everywhere. Doing weight-bearing exercise, which includes our body, walking, running, our body is weight. Weight-bearing exercise helps to maintain or increase our bone density, or at least reduce the loss of it. We also, again, like I said before, as we age, we lose muscle mass. So the more, it's a use it or lose it type thing, y'all. We got to use it. And the longer we wait to get started, the harder it's going to be to get to where we can use it more efficiently. So that's really super important, because we need that strength training. We need that strength training to help us as we age. And then we need to incorporate balance training and things like that into it to protect ourselves from fall risk. So these are really important things. So that's what you're shooting for. You're shooting for 5 days. You're shooting for long-term. You don't have to start there. Don't get scared and be like, okay, I'm out. I can't do this. Listen to me. We're shooting long-term for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week. Okay. And we're shooting for a couple of days of strength training, weight-bearing exercise, push-ups, whatever works for you. We're not going to dig into all the whys and wherefores right now, but that's what we're shooting for. And we want to track it. That's another way to help facilitate change. We want to track it because when we track what we're doing, it puts it on our radar and it motivates us to increase the activity. So this can be done in a lot of ways. There's all kinds of ways to do this, all kinds of technology, and not all of it has to be expensive. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we need to track it though. When I started logging my food intake is when it really opened my eyes on to how much crap I was taking in, and sorry about the word, but and how much protein I wasn't consuming and how much fat, carbohydrates, processed stuff I was consuming. So tracking makes it, you can't change a number, you can't increase or decrease a number that you're not tracking, right? So track your steps, track your activity, because it puts it on your radar, and for most people, it's going to motivate us to do a little bit better. If I'm shooting for 10,000 steps a day and I'm at 9,789 and I want to go to bed, you know what I'm usually doing? I'm doing figure eights around the house to hit that 10,000. Yes, I've done that. Ask Eric. He can tell you. All right. Another thing that you can do is change to a standing desk. There's lots of adjustable options out there. They're not as expensive as they used to be. Hey, Miss Patty. Yes, it's balance is definitely something that is really important going forward because it helps protect us. It helps reduce our risk of falling. So standing desks, these can be adjustable. These can be homemade. You can walk over your breakfast bar and turn it into a standing desk. There's lots of options there. If you're at your job, talk to your job about it. Say, I'd like to be healthier. I'd like to be more productive. Here's what the research shows. Will you buy me an adjustable desk to put on top of mine? Some of them are just apparatuses that sit on your existing desk. Some of them, like the one I have here, is, which I'll take a picture of it when we're done. Some of them are actually made to be standing desks, the whole desk in itself. So it really depends on what works for you. What you want to do is, if you're going to switch to a standing desk, is you want to make sure it's set up so that you're not leaning, so that you're not stretching, so that you're not trying to reach stuff. It's got to be at a good height to be, yes, Kelly, they're fantastic. Listen, the one I have, I paid probably just under $300 for, the one I have at home. Yeah, you don't want to be bending over. It's really important that you're able to maintain good posture while you're standing. I got myself in trouble doing a lot of leaning and caused some muscular issues for a while because I was leaning on my desk too much, and it caused problems too. So you want to not be leaning. You want to make sure it's at the right height for you. And that's why the adjustable ones, yeah, this one's a complete desk. It doesn't have a whole lot going on underneath it. I'll drop a photo in the comments. But this one's automatic, and it's even got preset settings so you can set it for sitting and standing. I think the original standing desks, and I can't remember the brand that we had at my office, that sat on top of my existing desk, was about $400, and it was also adjustable. You could raise it up or down. So a standing desk, adjustable, homemade. You can, if you're brave, you can look at a treadmill desk. That's kind of where these things started. But a standing desk is a great option, or finding ways to stand more when you're doing stuff at home. Okay. Set a timer. If you cannot stand at your desk, set a timer, to break up long blocks of sitting. Recommendations are usually every 30 minutes to an hour, depending on who you ask, who you're talking to, what website you look at. So every 30 minutes to an hour, get up, walk around, stand up, stretch, go get your water bottle full, get a smaller bottle of water so that you can refill it more often, whatever. Set a timer, break up those sitting times. Sometimes when I go to like seminars and webinars or weekend long events, a lot of times you can find me. I'll sit in the back on purpose so that when I need to get up and stand, I can get up and stand and lean against the wall and not distract anybody because I'm in the back so they can't see me, right? Except the speaker. So find ways to stand more. Take phone calls walking around. Don't take them at your desk. Get up, walk around. Do the pacing. Walking meetings instead of lunch meetings. Our whole world, especially at my previous job, our whole world revolves around food. A lot of times we're sitting down eating it while we're doing stuff. So especially up north, a lot of corporations have turned their meetings into walking meetings where they're actually walking, or tracks have been installed, around the outside or whatever, and they're walking around while they're having meetings. So anytime that you can turn something that would normally be a sitting occasion into a walking occasion, or even a standing occasion, is a great opportunity to get more movement in. When you're watching TV, one of the recommendations is to sit on a stability ball while you're watching. I've never done that. I can honestly tell you I've never sat on a stability ball while I watch TV. I don't actually watch a lot of TV. Most of the time when I do sit down in front of it, I've got my feet kicked up and I'm doing stuff on my phone for work or for my activewear business or whatever. But this is a way that you can watch TV and still keep your core muscles kind of stabilized, and kind of work them instead of just sitting on the couch, especially if you have poor posture when you're sitting. Another thing that you can do is if you are going to sit down and binge watch a show, use commercials or pause. Again, set a timer for standing, walking, stretching breaks. Get up, do a figure 8 around the house, in my case, or a circle. Go to the bathroom, do some stretching. I've been known to lay on the floor and do yoga poses while I'm watching TV. So there's lots of ways to do that. And I know I'm running long, y'all, today, but this is really important stuff. And use a lumbar roll. When you are sitting at a desk, use a lumbar roll behind the small of your back to give you that extra support. Make sure and to improve your alignment according to Yale Medicine, and make sure that you're not slouching in your chair like me and my ET look. And most importantly, this is super important. Stop looking at movement and exercise as a chore. Ellipticals are fabulous, Kelly. Definitely start getting on that. If you're not already, try to work your way up. Even if you start with like 10 minutes 3 times a week and start working your way up from there. Most importantly, stop looking at exercise as a chore, or I don't need to lose weight, so I don't need to exercise, or my job already has physical activity involved, so I don't need to exercise. No. I have a friend who drives a lot, and a lot of times they're also climbing in attics. Because they're climbing in attics and stuff like that a lot, they feel like they do enough and that they don't really need to do more. But I can guarantee you whatever they are doing is offset by the amount of time they're sitting in their vehicle. Yes, we get to move, Patty. That's absolutely right. We're lucky. It's so important. So stop looking at it as a chore. Stop looking at it as just a weight loss aid, and start viewing it as supplemental medicine, to help improve your quality of life. Like Patty just said, give it an I get to perspective instead of an I have to perspective, and it makes a huge difference. And remember, as you're doing it, even if you're like, oh, I'm getting my butt kicked, the fact that you can do it is huge. We should be grateful, because if we don't do it, we are going to lose it. We're going to lose that ability to move. We're going to lose that ability to be a little more independent. So my call to action, my challenge for you, I'm wrapping this up. I know it was long, y'all, is add 20 minutes of movement at least 3 times over the next week. Whether it's a walk, whether it's a dance party in your living room, whether it's swimming, whatever, add 20 minutes of movement, at least 20 minutes, at least 3 times over the next week. I don't want you to go from never exercising to trying to train for a marathon. That's not the way to do it. You have to start small. But add 20 minutes of movement, even if it's just a 20-minute walk, at least 3 times next week, okay? See what you can do, and then see how you feel, and go from there. Track your steps. 10,000 steps, hey, Miss Danielle, is the most common recommendation, but even as low as 5,000 or 6,000 steps a day, especially if you're somebody that typically is that person that goes from the bed to the chair to the driver's seat to the desk, even 5,000 or 6,000 steps a day, if it's done every single day, can make a huge difference over time. And remember, whatever you do, it may be 6 to 9 months before you see results. Okay? But you may feel those results a lot sooner. And again, there's lots of options for tracking your steps. It doesn't have to be expensive. Most of our smartphones have some kind of tracking. That just means we have to keep them on us. So stick it in your pocket, use an armband, whatever. Pedometers are still fairly inexpensive, and you can attach those usually to a pant leg or a shoe. And of course, there's Fitbits, smartwatches, etc. There's all kinds of technology out there to help you track your steps and see how much you're moving. Because once it's on your radar, then you're just listen, we all try to be better than we were yesterday, right? So it becomes a contest to beat ourselves, right? And then here's the things I want you to remember, and then I'm going to let you go, is bad habits lead to more bad habits, right? But so do good ones. Good habits lead to good, yes, Kelly, that's fantastic. Congratulations. Good habits also lead to good habits. We just have to get started. So start small. That's my second reminder to you. Start small. Do what you can. What we're working on is an overall healthier lifestyle. You don't have to overhaul anything in the next hour. Rome was not built in a day. It did not take us, if it took us this long to get here, it's going to take us a while to get back to where we should be, right? But our bodies were designed to move. It's a use it or lose it type situation. Get started. Start small. Do what you can. You can't do 20 minutes because maybe you've got some knee problems, whatever, so you can't do 20 minutes 3 times a day right out of the gate. Shoot for 10. Can't do high impact, do lower impact, do an elliptical. Go over to Kelly's house. She'll let you use her elliptical. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Kelly. But ellipticals are lower impact ways of mimicking, running, walking, whatever. Can't do outside because it's too hot. Treadmill, YMCA, gym. Sorry guys. If you're used to exercising and you're ready to get started and you're interested in those multi-component cognitive and physical movements, check out, especially if you're local, check out Jazzercise Crystal River. They're having an open house free class Saturday morning. I will be there probably at 8. You message me, let me know when you're going, and I'll modify accordingly. How's that sound? So 8 o'clock class, 9 o'clock class. I will drop the link for that information in the comments. But whatever you do, start small, do what you can, and let's work on an overall healthier lifestyle that includes movement. Park farther away. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. There was legit truth to this all along, and we just kind of all rolled our eyes, and even had fitness gurus say, well, that's not enough, and it probably isn't enough in the long run, but for those of us that aren't moving at all, it's a great place to start. So take the stairs, park farther away, whatever it takes to get you moving more on your feet. So those are my challenges to you. Add 20 minutes of movement at least 3 times this week. Let me know how it goes. Track your steps so that you understand how much you are or are not moving. And then bad habits lead to more, but so do good ones. Start small, do what you can, and work on an overall healthier lifestyle. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. You do not have to work out like an Olympic athlete. That's not what this is going to take. This takes 15 to 20 minute walks, can make a huge difference if they are done regularly and consistently. All right. That's all I have. I'm going to drop some links for you in the comments. And we may dig a little bit more into exercise as it relates to cognitive health at a later date, maybe even next week while I've got all this stuff from my continuing education fresh in my head. In the meantime, I know it was long. I'm so sorry, but it was important information. I hope y'all have a fabulous day. Share this if you found it helpful because everybody needs to know how important movement is. And until next Wednesday, be well. Bye.